and welcome to China's Living Languages.
欢迎来到我的频道。
Let's jump right into a problem that feels, well, incredibly modern, but it's actually ancient. Imagine you're running this massive organization. Could be an empire back then, could be a global tech firm today. You hire a key leader, a real star, for a post thousands of miles away. But how do you actually know the person who shows up is the person you hired?
It's a huge problem, isn't it? Especially without today's tech. No LinkedIn profiles, no video verifications, certainly no biometrics. Ancient China faced exactly this. They had this policy, the rule of avoidance.
Ah, yes, sending officials deliberately far from home.
Precisely. The idea was smart, keep them loyal to the emperor, the central power, not their local buddies or family connections.
But that creates this huge gap, right? An information vacuum. No one at the new post knows them personally.
Exactly. An open door, you might think, for an imposter.
And this wasn't just theoretical. There's that famous story in Journey to the West.
Yeah.
About Prefect Chen Guanggrui.
Oh, yeah. A chilling example. Appointed to a high post, travels there.
And gets murdered on the way by a bandit, who then just takes his papers, his identity, and walks right into the job.
It shows the stakes. A total system failure was possible, at least in fiction. It highlights the very real fear.
So that's our deep dive today. How did they solve this? How, without any modern technology, did ancient China build, well, what sounds like a seriously robust anti-fraud firewall?
It's fascinating. It wasn't just one thing. It was this multi-layered system, a blend of formal rules and something much more human, more network-based.
Okay, let's really put ourselves there. This remote star hire problem. You're the official, you've got your appointment papers, you travel for weeks, maybe months, you arrive somewhere totally alien, nobody knows your face, your history, nothing. Imagine how isolating that must feel, and how incredibly vulnerable. You're meant to lead, but you're a complete unknown.
And that isolation was intentional, strategically. Think of it like a modern corporation sending an exec overseas. HQ wants their loyalty, not allegiance to the local branch office.
Mandatory rotation, basically. Stops them getting too cozy with local interests.
Right, prevents local capture, as we might call it. But like you said, it creates this critical onboarding information vacuum. The local team, initially, has almost zero proof you are who you say you are.
Which brings us back to the imposter. Could someone like Prefect Chen's killer actually pull it off? Exploit that window?
Well, my analysis, looking at the system they built, is it would be extremely difficult, bordering on impossible for any significant lengths of time.
Really? Impossible? Why?
Because they had these, let's call them 3 firewalls, 3 layers of defense that an imposter would have to breach. And they weren't all obvious.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What was the first firewall? I'm guessing it starts with the paperwork, the official stuff.
That's right. The first layer was what I'd call the breakable paper defense. Pretty straightforward, actually. You'd have your travel pass. Think of it as an official ID, background check summary, even included a detailed physical description.
Like height, hair color, distinguishing marks, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then you'd have the letter of appointment, your official job offer, outlining your role, your authority, the formal contract.
Okay. But for our clever imposter, someone who maybe even resembles the real official, forging or stealing those seems doable, right?
Absolutely. That's why I call it breakable. For ancient administrators, these documents were just the first check, necessary, but definitely not sufficient.
So not the main line of defense.
Not at all. If you looked reasonably like the description and had the papers, you'd get through this first gate. It makes you think, though.
About modern times.
Yeah. Are we sometimes still too reliant on just these paper truths? A CV, a diploma scan, maybe a standard background check?
Good point. We assume digital means secure, but maybe it's just fancier paper.
For the ancient Chinese system, this paper firewall screened out the amateurs, maybe, but a professional fraudster, they'd get past it. This was just the beginning.
Right, so if the papers could be faked or stolen, what came next? How did they really verify you? This must be where it gets more complex.
This is the core, I think. Identity wasn't just a document. It was the collective witness of an entire career. It was embedded in relationships.
Okay, collective witness. What does that mean in practice?
Think about their career path. It wasn't hidden. It started with the imperial examination system. This whole process was very public, very structured.
Like a corporate leadership program, but on a massive scale.
Kind of, yeah. You started as a child candidate, passed exams, became a cultivated talent, maybe went on to be a provincial graduate, and the pinnacle was palace graduate.
Each step up the ladder.
Exactly. Each step was like moving from trainee to manager to director to VP candidate. And crucially, each major examination, each promotion gate, was run by different, more senior officials, chief examiners.
So multiple senior people are vetting you over years.
Years, even decades. And it culminated in what was basically a final interview round, often involving the emperor himself, the chairman of the board, so to speak.
Okay, so your career path is known, but how does that stop an imposter who just, memorized the resume?
Here's the really clever part. The sponsor-protege network. This wasn't just networking as we know it. After you passed a major exam or got a key promotion, you were required to establish a formal, lifelong connection with the senior official, the examiner, or sponsor who oversaw that stage.
Required, so it wasn't optional.
Not at all. It was institutionalized. Think regular letters, appropriate gifts for festivals or birthdays, seeking advice, offering support. It was a maintained, active relationship.
So you end up with this web of connections.
Exactly. A web connecting you to multiple senior figures who knew you, had assessed you, had sponsored you at different points in your career. This created what I call an unforgeable distributed ledger of your professional life.
Like blockchain, but with people.
Sort of. Every sponsor was a verification node. Their endorsement, their ongoing relationship with you, was public knowledge within the official class. It was living proof of your career trajectory. An imposter could steal the papers, maybe even know the names on the resume, but could they fake decades of these intricate personal relationships? No way. That's Firewall number 2.
Wow, okay, that distributed ledger of relationships is powerful. But how would it actually catch someone out? Day to day, when the new official arrives, miles from anyone.
It wouldn't be passive. The system actively tested you almost immediately. These weren't formal checks, but unavoidable social and professional interactions.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so you arrive at your post. Protocol demands you report in. Which sponsor do you write to first? The one who got you your last job? Or the really senior one from your final exams years ago?
A wrong move there would seem odd.
Very odd. Or, say, it's a major festival, or your main sponsor's birthday. What gift is appropriate? Too lavish looks like bribery, too cheap is an insult. What personal note do you include?
Mentioning shared experiences, maybe. Inside jokes.
Exactly. Stuff only the real person would know. The kind of nuance built over years. And what about when you hit a snag? A real problem in your new province?
Who do you turn to for help?
Right. Which sponsor do you approach for advice? Or maybe for a quiet word in the right ear back at court? Which one provides those informal organizational resources? Accessing that depends entirely on the actual relationship you have.
I say it's like constant low-key social audit.
That's a great way to put it. And the aha moment is any single misstep. Sending the wrong gift, writing an awkward letter, approaching the wrong sponsor. It would immediately raise eyebrows.
And these sponsors talk to each other.
Oh, absolutely. They were a network. A quick message, did you hear from Young Lai? Seemed a bit off, and the whole thing unravels. A few checks between these verification nodes, and the imposter is exposed fast.
So it's a low-cost, high ROI social network for identity verification.
Exactly. Built into the fabric of their careers. Extremely hard to fool.
Okay, that's seriously impressive. Firewall 1, the papers, easy to bypass. Firewall 2, the career ledger and sponsor network, much, much tougher.
Yeah.
But let's push it. What if the imposter was, say, the official's long-term personal assistant? Someone who knew everything, the sponsors, the gifts, the inside jokes, the whole history intimately. Could they pull it off then?
That's the ultimate test case, isn't it? The deep insider threat. Even then, I'd argue, they'd hit Firewall number 3. And this one might be the most effective because it's completely organic and unpredictable.
Which is?
Let's call it spontaneous social due diligence.
Okay.
Think about a prominent person today. When they get a big new job, news travels, right? Through alumni networks, former colleagues, hometown connections, social circles.
Yeah, people hear about it.
Well, imagine that in a society arguably more interconnected through family and locality than ours. When a new governor or prefect arrived, word would spread like wildfire back through their entire personal history.
So it's not just the professional network activating.
No, it's everyone. Suddenly you'd be inundated.
Inundated how?
You'd get letters or even visits from former classmates or colleagues from years ago. Congratulations. By the way, my nephew's looking for work.
Okay, to job seekers.
Then relatives you haven't seen in ages, maybe distant cousins, old neighbors from your hometown. We're so proud. Could you perhaps find a small position for my son in your household?
Looking for favors.
And then, perhaps most challenging, old friends, people you grew up with, people who knew you when you were 10, showing up just to, pay respects, maybe share a cup of tea, reminisce about old times. They carry decades of shared memories.
Okay, I see the problem for the imposter now. The trap.
A complete trap. What do? Option A, you meet these people.
Risky. One wrong word, one blank stare when they mention your childhood dog.
Exactly. You can't fake 20 years of shared history, neighborhood gossip, family stories. A single interaction could expose you instantly. You don't have the memories.
Okay, so option B. You refuse to meet anyone, you lock yourself away.
Even worse, imagine a high official arriving and immediately cutting off all ties with their past, refusing to see old friends, neighbors, even distant family, acting like a total recluse.
That would look incredibly suspicious,
Yeah.
especially in a relationship-based society.
It would be the biggest red flag imaginable. Why is this person acting like they have no past? What are they hiding? That behavior alone would trigger suspicion, probably lead to discreet inquiries back through those very networks they're avoiding. A top-level investigation for sure.
So meet them, you're caught. Don't meet them, you're caught.
Precisely. This bottom-up, relentless social due diligence from their entire life history, not just professional, made long-term impersonation practically impossible. It's a firewall made of collective memory.
It's truly remarkable. A zero-trust system built entirely on human networks, long before we had the technology or even the term for it. So let's bring this home. What are the big lessons here for us today?
I think there are three huge takeaways, incredibly relevant for modern organizations. First, go beyond the resume, verify the network.
You mean stop just checking qualifications?
Pretty much. We rely heavily on paper, digital credentials, background checks. Ancient China shows the most difficult thing to forge isn't a diploma, it's a deep, verifiable, authentic network of relationships. So for critical hires, especially senior ones, don't just call the listed references. Do deep network due diligence. Map their connections. Who are the recurring sponsors or mentors in their career? What's their real reputation in the communities they belong to?
Look for the patterns in the relationship.
Exactly. A strong, authentic network graph signals near zero fraud risk. That's a better indicator than almost any formal check.
Okay, that's insight one. What's the second?
Second, organizational security isn't just formal process, it's informal culture. We build IT firewalls, compliance rules, access controls. That's important, but it can be fragile.
Because people can find workarounds.
Or because it creates a false sense of security. The ancient system was strong because it fused formal rules with that informal social fabric. The sponsor network, the social due diligence that wasn't written in any rule book, but it was powerfully effective. So companies need to intentionally cultivate their informal social network, encourage cross-team projects, mentorship, alumni groups, social events.
Not just for morale, but for security.
Yes. It builds trust, but it also creates a highly sensitive anomaly detection network. People notice when things or people seem off. It makes internal fraud or infiltration much harder. It's about building a resilient social immune system.
A social immune system. I like that. Okay, and the third insight.
Third, design a high-touch onboarding process, especially for key roles. Modern onboarding is often too sterile, too digital. Fill out forms online, watch some videos. It actually creates gaps where a sophisticated fraudster could hide.
So more human interaction.
Deliberately. Think about a high-touch 100-day plan. Not just HR paperwork, but scheduled informal lunches with company veterans, introductions to board members, maybe mandatory joining of relevant internal groups or industry chapters where they'd be expected to know people, even arrange meetings with current staff who previously worked at the new hire's old company.
Force those network connections to activate.
Precisely. The goal is simple. Maximize opportunities for their claimed past to be socially verified. It seems like effort, but it's incredibly cost-effective risk management compared to the potential cost of executive fraud.
So looking back, ancient China essentially built this incredibly effective zero-trust environment for its officials, but did it entirely through human systems, through social validation, through networks. No code, just connections.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? In our world, increasingly reliant on digital verification, maybe we've underestimated the power, the robustness of these, messier, more human systems of trust.
A final thought for you listening. Consider the invisible firewalls in your own life, your own networks. How much do you rely on the digital check versus the deep, sometimes complicated, but potentially powerful verification that comes from real human connection? Where does true trust really reside?
Okay, picture this. You've got the absolute perfect resume, Ivy League, maybe, top firm experience anyway.
Right, stellar track record.
You've nailed the presentations, wowed the stakeholders, built these incredible models, and then you step into that big new leadership role.
Yeah, maybe running a key division or a factory overseas.
Exactly. And it just hits you. All that theory, those, beautiful slides, they don't actually tell you how to handle, say, a sudden union dispute.
Or how to fix a messy supply chain snag right now. It's that classic executive nightmare, isn't it? You look great on paper, but the deep down anxiety is, can you really handle the messy reality?
It's such a universal feeling. That generalist leader, the strategist, parachuting into a place filled with people who've been doing that specific thing for years.
The specialists and, the board, the CEO, they're asking first, okay, who is this person? Legitimacy first.
But once that's sorted, the real question surfaces.
There's a much tougher one. Okay, they're legitimate, but can they actually, lead this specific operation?
That gap, that potential disconnect, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're going on a bit of a journey, actually. Way back to ancient China, believe it or not.
To their imperial examination system, the officials it produced.
And then connecting it straight back to our modern corporate world, the mission.
Extract some really practical insights. How can generalist leaders survive and actually thrive leading these specialist teams?
And the starting puzzle from ancient China is just fascinating. How did this whole system, staffed by people picked for, let's face it, pure academic theory?
Right. Classical knowledge, essay writing.
How did it not just, implode when faced with really complex hands-on tasks? How did they possibly bridge that massive competency gap?
So yeah, that first hurdle for any new leader, it's not just about showing up with the job offer. It's about legitimacy, trust.
You mentioned that unforgeable trust ledger before we started. It's more than just ticking boxes on a background check.
Absolutely. It was about your network, your mentors, the relationships, vouching for who you actually were. Character, essentially.
Okay, unforgeable trust ledger. I like that. But, okay, once they clear that hurdle, then comes the real performance anxiety, maybe from the people who hired them.
Oh, totally. That can they actually do it? Question moves front and center. Competency.
And this is where we meet ancient China's generalists, the officials chosen through the imperial exams. Brilliant people, no doubt.
Super smart. But their expertise, deeply theoretical. Classical texts, policy essays, stuff like that. Not exactly practical management training.
Can you imagine? They ace these incredibly difficult exams, get their first big assignment.
And suddenly they're supposed to be managing tax collection for a whole region.
Or presiding over complex legal cases, maybe overseeing massive infrastructure projects.
It's this huge paradox, right? The theory expert suddenly running a machine full of specialists who know all the practical tricks, the unwritten rules.
So how does this ancient problem look today in, a modern company?
Okay, think about that star VP. Maybe fresh from a top consulting gig, McKinsey, Bain, got the MBA, knows all the frameworks, the models.
Killer PowerPoint skills. Can charm any investor.
Exactly. Teaching, saloon, the theory part, Zawin, the slick presentation. But then...
Can they actually, metaphorically speaking, drive the excavator?
Right. Can they walk onto the factory floor and genuinely connect with and solve problems for the blue-collar team?
Untangle that supply chain mess in real time, deal with a sudden walkout.
That's the rub. It's the timeless conflict. The generalist brain versus the specialist reality. That brilliance and strategy doesn't just magically translate into operational know-how.
Okay, so if these ancient officials were kind of like political appointees chosen by exam, smart, legitimate, but maybe not practically skilled.
Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it, who is actually running the day-to-day show? Who are the real career officials keeping the wheels turning?
And this is where we find this sort of invisible power structure. Two key groups.
Yep. First, you had the clerks, the shuli.
Think of them as the permanent middle management, the institutional memory.
The central nervous system, you could say. They were the living database. They handled all the paperwork, every single process approval.
They might not have had the fancy degrees, but they knew every single SOP, every internal process, and crucially, every unwritten rule.
Absolutely. Hyper-specialized process experts. They'd seen officials come and go for decades.
And then beneath them, you had the runners. The yay.
These were the boots on the ground, the frontline team doing the, let's call it the dirty work, collecting taxes, enforcing judgments, security, all that stuff.
And they were masters of the unwritten rules out on the street, how things really got done, often well outside the official procedures.
So imagine being that new official, that parachuted in VP. You arrive and you quickly realize the official org chart. It's almost a fiction.
Right. The real operational power, the day-to-day control, it rests with this incredibly stable, professional, but invisible power structure of clerks and runners.
It's kind of terrifying, actually, for the new person. And it gets even trickier because this whole setup had a massive built-in problem, what we'd call principal-agent risk.
Which is basically the people doing the work, the agents, their goals don't necessarily line up with the leadership's goals, the principles.
Exactly. And in ancient China, the imperial court think corporate HQ was incredibly stingy with official headcounts, the Beyonzi.
So a whole county might only have, what, 10 or 11 official clerks on the books?
Something like that, maybe even fewer. But the actual workload required hundreds, maybe thousands of people. So most of the work was done by unofficial temporary workers or outsourced staff.
Ah, okay. And these temps, these outsourced guys, they weren't really bound by the same rules or discipline as official staff.
Not at all. And frankly, many saw interacting with the public, the customers, as, well, opportunities for personal gain. Let's put it politely.
Okay, I see where this is going. So our modern VP issues a new directive, let's say, improve customer satisfaction scores.
Right. And they delegate it down through the formal structure to these clerks and runners who look like the experienced team.
But the VP has no real visibility into how it's actually being carried out by this largely unofficial, potentially self-interested workforce.
Total blind spot. And the result, often chaos, complaints might skyrocket, the policy gets twisted on the ground.
Income review time.
Guess who gets the blame? Our well-intentioned VP. They're held responsible for the mess created by this invisible system they couldn't control.
You read those old officials' memoirs, and this is what they complain about constantly, the gnashing of teeth, as you said. It wasn't external enemies, it was managing their own inherited dysfunctional team.
So, yeah, your fancy degree and strategic plans don't help you manage these entrenched players. And you usually can't just fire everyone, so what do you do?
It was a solution.
Well, the clever officials figured it out. If you can't effectively control the team you inherited, you bring in your own team, one you can't control.
Ah, the shadow cabinet.
Precisely. This is where it gets really interesting. A savvy official getting a new post wouldn't just start by studying reports.
No, their first move was hiring, using their own money, right?
Often, yes. Building a private team of advisors and, frankly, enforcers. Two key parts to this shadow cabinet.
Okay, lay it out for us.
First, the private secretaries, the shy.
But not like a modern executive assistant.
Not at all. Think. Highly specialized consultants, external brains, hired guns you brought in because you knew you lacked the specific expertise.
So the system itself, the imperial exam, created a market need for these guys because it didn't test practical skills.
Exactly. It was a market fix for a system flaw. These shy were the specialists in practical administration, finance, law.
So you'd hire like a finance and ops consultant, a Kiangu shy.
Yep. Someone who could actually audit the clerk's books, spot fraud, understand the local tax system inside out.
And maybe a legal and compliance consultant, the Xingming shy.
Crucial. To navigate disputes, understand regulations, basically keep the official out of legal trouble. The official was the generalist, the amateur in these domains. The shy was the professional providing oversight.
Okay, so that covers the brains, the expertise gap. But you still need people you trust to actually do things.
Right. You need loyal hands and feet. That's the second part. The personal retinue, the Cheng Sui.
And these weren't just bodyguards.
Much more than that. They were experts in, let's call it, organizational politics. They knew how the real system worked, which rules could be bent, who needed influencing, how to build alliances.
So this was your trusted operational team.
Your personal troops, essentially. Could be dozens, even hundreds of people. They'd take over key execution roles, supervise the official clerks and runners closely, make sure things actually got done the way the official intended.
Wow. So what you ended up with was this kind of two-track organization running in parallel.
Absolutely. You had the official legacy team, the clerks and runners still there, maybe doing routine stuff, but essentially sidelined.
And then you had the unofficial shadow team, the shy and Changsu holding the real operational power, making the key decisions, ensuring execution.
It's a fascinating workaround. There's even that great example from the novel Dream of the Red Chamber with Jia Zhang.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
Well, he tries to be the perfect by-the-book official, Comes in, wants to abolish all the unwritten rules, all the informal ways things got done.
And what happens?
Total system collapse. Nothing gets done. The whole administration just grinds to a halt because he broke the real operating system.
So reality bites.
Exactly. It's only when he basically gives up and learns to work with and through this shadow system, relying on the experienced hands, that things get back to normal. It just shows how vital these informal structures were.
Okay, so this is amazing stuff. But what does it all mean for us today? For anyone listening who's maybe stepping into a new role or managing a complex team?
Right, the takeaways. Insight number one, and maybe the most critical. That first instinct of a new generalist leader to come in and immediately start imposing big changes based on their past successes elsewhere.
Yeah.
Potentially fatal mistake.
Really?
Because those ancient officials, the smart ones, they knew they were incompetent in the specific practical details of the new job. They didn't pretend otherwise.
So their first priority wasn't some grand vision.
No, it was bridging their own capability gap. Hire the shy, the experts to get the right information. Assemble the changsui, the loyal doers, to build trust and ensure execution.
So those first 90 days, forget the big strategy document.
Pretty much. Focus on rapidly building your private intelligence network, your trusted advisors, your loyal lieutenants, both internal and maybe external. Without that network, every big decision is basically just a shot in the dark.
That's powerful. Build the real team first. Okay, what else?
Insight number two. You have to acknowledge and learn to manage the unwritten rules. Don't be like Jia Zhang and try to just abolish them with formal policies.
Because every place has them, right? The real way things get done, that isn't in the employee handbook.
Every single mature organization, it's the informal network, the real processes. Trying to just bulldoze them with some idealized vision usually just causes shock and resistance.
So what's the move then? Understand the logic behind them first.
Yes. Why do they exist? What problem do they solve, even if inefficiently? Then, use your shadow team, your trusted people, to navigate them, maybe gently modify them over time, or find ways to bypass them when necessary.
It sounds like treating them almost like technical debt in software.
That's a great analogy. Exactly. You might plan to refactor it later, pay it down when the time is right. But until then, you have to operate with it. Pretending it doesn't exist is just asking for trouble.
Okay, technical debt, shadow teams. This is giving me a whole new vocabulary. What's the final insight?
Insight number three is about the relationship between generalists and specialists. This whole ancient system with the exams and the private secretaries. It reveals a kind of law of the talent market.
Which is?
When your main selection process heavily favors general skills like strategic thinking, communication, the stuff imperial exams tested,
Okay.
you inevitably create a booming market for specialist consultants who can fill the gaps for those generals leaders. The shy were that market.
So it's a complementary system. One creates the need for the other.
Precisely. So for corporations today, the implication is when you hire or promote a generalist executive into a complex role, don't just throw them in.
Give them a budget for their own shy.
Yes. Provide a budget for specialist advisors, internal or external, as part of a complete leadership package. Recognize they'll need that specialist support to succeed.
And what about for individuals? Say you're a deep specialist, maybe feeling stuck because you lack those general management roles.
Well, this suggests a powerful alternative path. Maybe becoming an independent consultant, a fractional CXO, specifically serving those senior generalist executives. That could be where you provide immense value. You become their shy.
Filling that exact gap the market creates makes perfect sense.
So lots to think about there. It leaves you wondering, doesn't it?
What's that final thought for everyone listening?
Just this. How could acknowledging, maybe even strategically using, your own shadow cabinet, your trusted advisors, your key informal influencers, transform how you lead, whether you're the official boss or just trying to get things done in a team?
And maybe, what are those hidden unwritten rules shaping your own work environment or even the wider world that you might be completely overlooking right now? You know, in our modern world, we're all sort of on this relentless quest, aren't we? Always searching for that elusive work-life balance, maybe a flexible schedule, and ways to really spark innovation without everyone just quietly quitting.
Yeah, it's the million-dollar question for, well, pretty much every organization today.
It really is. Can we actually get both? That incredible flexibility and real productivity. It feels like the ultimate puzzle.
It'd feel totally contemporary, but what if? What if the answers, or at least some, really surprising insights, have been hiding for well, over 1,000 years.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where are we going with this?
We're about to take a deep dive into this incredibly unexpected place, a massive corporate empire from way back. We're sort of calling it the Tang Group for our purposes.
The Tang Group.
Yeah.
Like the Tang Dynasty, over 1,000 years ago.
Exactly. Imagine a world, right? No Slack, no email, obviously no Wi-Fi. But this ancient organization, they face challenges that are actually strikingly similar to ours.
So what's our mission here? What are we digging for?
We want to unearth their unique approaches. How did they handle work, travel, creativity? We're going to find out what their flexible work system was really like. And crucially, did it actually work?
Okay, so flexibility and productivity, ancient style. What are the key structures we're looking at?
Well, we'll be dissecting their core setup. There's this fascinating and honestly sometimes jarring tension between their headquarters and all their far-flung branches.
HQ versus the field offices, got it.
Right. And then there's this truly radical executive rotation program they had. It fundamentally shaped their leadership and, kind of surprisingly, it even fueled a whole literary movement.
Wow. Okay. Let's unpack that. So when I picture Tang Dynasty officials, I often think of, leisurely scholars, maybe writing poetry by a pond, big banquets. Was it really like that? So relaxed.
Well, that image, that idyllic picture, it turns out it depended entirely on, let's say, where you punched your time card.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Location, location, location.
Exactly. The Tang Group had this institutionalized cultural gap right down the middle. If you were an official at headquarters, you were basically living in what we could call headquarters heaven.
Headquarters heaven. Okay, tell me more. That sounds pretty good.
It really was, especially by modern standards.
Yeah.
Their earliest rules basically said officials worked from sunrise until noon.
So a half-day system.
A half-day system, yeah. But here's where it gets, well, truly astonishing. After this huge crisis, the Anlushan Rebellion, a massive civil war that really shook the empire, it evolved. It became a half-day, every other day system.
Wait, what? Half a day? Every other day?
Yep. Think about that. A full day off between half days of work.
I think half our listeners just did a spit take with their coffee. So they were in the office for what? Maybe a couple of hours a day, a few days a week? That's an incredible amount of leisure. Why?
Reportedly, it was partly cost-cutting, and frankly, in some departments, just light duties. It sounds like extreme underutilization, doesn't it?
It really does. Like the ultimate flex.
You could call it that, maybe a soundbite here. Tang HQ, where work-life balance meant half a day every other day. But, and this is a big but, contrast that sharply with anyone not at HQ.
Okay, so what was life like out in the branches?
If you were a local official, forget headquarters heaven. Your reality was basically a brutal 996 work model.
996, like 9 to 9, 6 days a week. But back then, that's mind-boggling.
Pretty much. Picture this. Morning yamen, that's the government office, sunrise to noon.
Yeah.
Then evening yamen, starting before sunset and going until maybe 9 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking mountains of reports, endless legal cases piled up, nonstop duties. It was a totally fragmented employee experience, a real branches hell.
That contrast is just stark. Do we have proof beyond just the rules, like personal stories?
Oh, absolutely. We have accounts that read almost like internal employee surveys or Glassdoor reviews from the 9th century. Take Bai Ju, he was a proofreader at HQ, kind of like strategy researcher. He literally wrote poems that were basically flex brags, boasting about his unfettered idle posts, like someone today posting their work from Bali photos.
I know the type.
But then, the moment he got assigned to a branch office, suddenly he's facing prisoners in chains, cases in heaps. His whole tone just flips.
So he starts complaining.
Completely. His later poems are full of envy, even resentment, towards his buddies back at HQ who are still, out playing polo or whatever.
And it wasn't just the officials themselves noticing this.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We even have what you might call external due diligence reports from visitors. There's this incredible story from a Japanese monk, Enin.
Oh, yeah. What did he find?
He recorded his attempt to get some vital travel documents from a branch office. He shows up in the morning, only to be told the magistrate, the guy in charge, had gone off to play polo.
Polo? During work hours? Seriously?
Seriously. So Enin had to come back in the evening. And after this long, frustrating wait, the final answer he gets is this classic bureaucratic brush-off. Essentially, go back and wait for notification.
Unbelievable. Polo in the morning, then wait for notification. That really shows the system breaking down, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. When your workload and your incentives are totally mismatched, and the system allows for that much leisure at the core without accountability, well, you get organizational inertia.
Things just slow down.
Exactly. Sluggish responses, basic services breaking down.
Right.
It's a really powerful warning for companies today thinking about flexible work without tying it clearly to accountability or, return on investment.
Hmm. It really makes you think, for you listening, how do you make sure that freedom doesn't just slide into a lack of accountability in your own work or maybe in your team?
That's the critical question.
So, okay, if headquarters was so relaxed, half day, every other day, kind of relaxed, and the branches were completely swamped, how did this huge empire not just collapse? It seems unsustainable.
Right, it feels like it should have fallen apart. But this is where the data and group's kind of sophisticated counter strategy kicks in. They had this really powerful tool, an executive rotation program.
Executive rotation, like moving managers around.
Exactly, but on a massive scale and systematically. And it shows some incredibly sharp management thinking. The senior leaders clearly saw three big risks if managers stayed in one spot for too long.
Okay, what were they worried about?
First, the headquarters ivory tower risk. Strategic planners back at HQ becoming totally disconnected from what's actually happening on the front lines.
Right, making policies in a vacuum.
Precisely.
Hmm.
Leading to ideas that were just, irrelevant or impossible to implement. Second risk, the local warlord problem.
Sounds ominous.
It could be. Managers out in the branches might get too dug in, form their own little interest communities with local elites, maybe even start acting like their branch was their personal kingdom. That jeopardizes the whole group's interest.
So losing sight of the bigger picture, building fiefdoms. Got it. And the third?
The third risk was simply organizational rigidity. Static organizations where people don't move inevitably create information silos. Departments stop talking to each other. Collaboration dies. Innovation stalls.
Silos. Still a huge problem today.
Definitely. So this rotation program was their answer. Maybe another soundbite. Rotate to innovate. The Tang Dynasty's cure for corporate complacency.
So how did it work in practice? Was it just occasional moves?
No, it was really strict. A standard 4-year tenure system. The typical path for an ambitious executive looks something like this. A short stint at headquarters first, just to learn the ropes, understand the core processes.
Nice onboarding.
Then a mandatory assignment out to a distant branch, get your hands dirty, get that frontline experience, and then, if your performance was excellent, you'd get recalled to headquarters to join the core leadership track.
So it wasn't just about preventing problems, it was actually part of their leadership development pipeline.
Absolutely fundamental. It was designed to cultivate this holistic view of the entire empire and their top people. But what's really fascinating here is the biggest, maybe unforeseen side effect of this whole system.
Which was?
It created huge amounts of on-the-road time.
Ah, right. Because travel back then was incredibly slow. Moving from HQ to a far-off branch wasn't a quick flight. It could take months.
Months, exactly. So picture these top executives, these strategic minds, completely disconnected for long stretches. No Wi-Fi, no conference calls, no email chains. They were isolated from the daily grind.
What did they do during all that time? Months on a bumpy road or a slow boat, it sounds. Oh, maybe boring.
You'd think so. Did they just stare out the carriage window for 3 months? Well, here's where it gets really, really interesting and kind of unexpected.
Okay.
They started creating content.
Content? Like what kind of content?
We're talking about what we now call Tang Twanky novels. These amazing stories, supernatural tales, romances, adventures. Think of them as the white papers or the blog post, maybe even the social media updates of their era, produced by these traveling executives.
Wow. So it wasn't just idle doodling. There was a purpose.
Oh, definitely. This creativity wasn't just random. It was often driven by specific and sometimes surprisingly modern, let's call them corporate motives.
Okay, like what? What was driving this literary output?
Well, one major driver was pretty practical, using these stories as stepping stones for their careers.
Stepping stones. How?
It was basically a sophisticated form of networking and personal branding. There was this practice called Xinghuan. Executives would literally use their literary works, poems, stories as like portfolios.
To show off their skills.
Yeah, exactly, to showcase their talent, their intellect, their insights. They'd send these pieces to their superiors or maybe to key influencers, hoping to impress them and land better positions. It was very utilitarian content, in a way.
So ancient networking. Publish a story, get a promotion. That's wild. What else?
Then there was the second driver, which is maybe more profound. It was this beautiful example of creative spillover happening during that enforced leisure time.
Creative spillover.
Yeah, that ample forced downtime away from the daily pressures. It just provided fertile ground for deep thinking, reflection, and ultimately creation.
Do you have an example of that?
Absolutely. Take Shen Jiji. He was a high-ranking official, like a Ministry of Finance director. He's on this long, probably tedious boat trip with several colleagues traveling from Qin to Wu.
Okay.
To kill the boredom, they basically hold what we call a story storm session, just sharing weird tales they'd heard. And Shen Jiji tells this story, Ren Shi's one, about a fox spirit. It was apparently so good, so captivating, everyone urged him, you have to write this down.
And did he?
He did. And it became this timeless classic, a piece of intellectual property that's lasted centuries.
Wow. That really shows how that structural leisure, that time completely disconnected from the day-to-day churn, can actually spark breakthrough thinking. It wasn't about being busy, it was about being maybe bored enough to be brilliant.
Exactly. It's a powerful idea. But it wasn't all just pleasant creativity and career boosting. There was a darker side to this content creation, too.
Oh.
The third driver, using content as weapons of public opinion in office politics. This was pure, unadulterated corporate info warfare.
Info warfare, like corporate espionage, but with stories.
Pretty much. We see this really vividly in the late Tang period, during the intense Newly faction struggle. This was a bitter, long-running power struggle between two dominant factions of executives, basically fighting for control of the central government.
Nasty office politics on an imperial scale.
You got it.
Yeah.
And suddenly, out of nowhere, this anonymous novel pops up called Zhou Qingxingji. It was supposedly written from the perspective of Niu Sengru, the leader of one faction.
Okay. What was it about?
It described these alleged affairs with famous historical beauties. But the rival faction, led by Li Deyu, immediately seized on it. They claimed it wasn't just a story, it was Niu Sengru's internal monologue, revealing his secret ambition to essentially usurp the chairman's position, the emperor's throne.
Whoa, so basically a black PR piece designed to politically assassinate him. That's incredibly modern, in a way.
It really is.
Yeah.
This incident just perfectly demonstrates that content creation wasn't always elegant or artistic. It was a potent tool in high-stakes power struggles. It shows that these informal content channels, they've always been used to shape perceptions, attack opponents. Black PR was definitely a thing, even 1,000 years ago.
So another soundbite, perhaps. Office politics. The pen was mightier than the sword, even in ancient China.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've gone from half days off to 996, from polo-playing magistrates to executive rotation and content creation wars. What does all this ancient history mean for us today? Navigating hybrid work, quiet quitting, all those modern corporate headaches.
Well, I think you can pull out some incredibly clear and actually quite actionable modern insights from the Tang group.
All right, let's hear them. Insight number 10.
First, beware of pseudo-flexibility. You need to design structural leisure that's actually oriented towards deep work.
Explain that. Pseudo-flexibility versus structural leisure.
Yeah, the Tang case shows two kinds of leisure, right? There was that daily leisure at HQ. It came from light duties, loose systems, and what did it lead to? Often slack, inertia, frustration for the people actually working hard elsewhere.
That sounds like, the freedom to just scroll Instagram during work hours because nobody's really checking.
Exactly. That's pseudo-flexibility. But then you had the structural leisure, those long travel periods. That was leisure totally cut off from daily tasks. And counterintuitively, that's what seemed to spark deep creativity and innovation.
So the implication for us, for you listening, isn't just about cutting hours.
Right. Simply cutting hours isn't enough. It might even backfire like it did at Tang HQ. The real key is to intentionally design periods for deep work. Think mandatory innovation sabbaticals, maybe dedicated meeting-free weeks.
Purposefully creating that cognitive surplus.
Precisely. That precious mental bandwidth, freed from the constant barrage of daily trivia, that's where the breakthroughs happen. It's about creating genuine space for reflection, disconnected from the immediate, the urgent.
Okay, that's a powerful takeaway. Don't just offer flexibility, structure time for deep work. What's insight number 2?
Second, view executive rotation not just as an HR process, but as a core chief cultural tool. It's vital for breaking down organizational barriers and managing succession risks.
The Tang Dynasty's 4-year tenure system sounds pretty radical. Modern companies often struggle with leaders staying too long, creating silos, becoming bottlenecks. Did that system really prevent that?
The evidence suggests it was incredibly effective at combating that fiefdom mentality and rigidity we talked about. For boards, for CEOs today, the lesson is, see executive rotation as a fundamental, long-term risk management investment.
So the disruption is worth it.
The benefits: breaking silos, creating leaders with a truly holistic view, Preventing entrenched interests, they arguably far outweigh the short-term costs of handover and adjustment. It's maybe one of the strongest tools for building long-term organizational resilience. Think of it like this. Break the silo. Rotate your leaders. Strengthen your empire.
Rotate your leaders, strengthen your empire. I like that. Okay, and the final insight. What's number 3?
Finally, pay really close attention to the informal content flows within your organization. Treat them as a barometer, maybe a weather vane for organizational health.
So the chatter, the stuff happening outside formal reports.
Exactly. From Shenjiji getting inspired on his boat trip to those anonymous political attack novels, these things happen in the informal spaces, the ancient equivalent of, your company's Slack channels, internal forums, maybe even just conversations around the water cooler.
So these are like leading indicators of the company culture.
Absolutely. As a leader, don't try to shut these channels down. See them as vital signals. When those informal channels are buzzing with creative ideas, maybe some good-natured jokes or complaints, spontaneous problem solving, your culture is likely pretty healthy, vibrant.
But if it turns negative?
Right. But when you start seeing anonymous attacks, nasty rumors, excessive cynical jargon spreading, those are often red flags. They signal deeper conflicts, mistrust, maybe unresolved issues that need immediate attention, just like that Newly faction fight showed.
Wow, so much to unpack there. We've gone from Tang Dynasty half-days off to modern 996, and it really does seem like the core challenges of work, creativity, corporate culture, they're truly timeless, aren't they?
They really are. The story of the Day Tang Group is a great reminder, I think, that real innovation and resilience don't always come from just more rigid structures. Sometimes they come from these cleverly designed spaces for connection, for reflection, and even for, dare we say it, boredom.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If an ancient empire could somehow leverage months of slow travel and quiet moments for amazing creativity and even for brutal political maneuvering, what untapped potential might be hiding in the dead time, the unexpected downtime in your modern work life?
Yeah, and maybe that's the final question for you to really chew on. How can you intentionally design that cognitive surplus into your own routine, or maybe even into your organization's structure? How can you unlock that unexpected creativity, find those deeper insights, and perhaps turn your own dead time into a genuine source of innovation? Have you ever found yourself in this situation? Maybe in your company, there's this incredible executive. They were absolutely pivotal back in the day, a real rock star. Maybe fought alongside the founder, helped build the whole thing up. But now, well, maybe they're over 70, their energy's fading a bit, perhaps their thinking is getting a little rigid, they're starting to become, well, let's face it, maybe a bottleneck. How do you move them on gracefully, without causing a huge internal drama or, frankly, disheartening everyone else who's put in the years?
It's a tough one. Feels very modern, doesn't it? That whole dilemma. But here's the real kicker. This isn't just some contemporary HR headache. This is actually a fundamental top-tier governance problem. And the Han Group, the Han Dynasty, they didn't just face this. They actually pretty effectively resolved it over 2,000 years ago.
Wow. Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, how they managed it. We're going to unpack this incredible story, how the Han Dynasty basically invented history's first golden parachute. And then how they evolved that initial idea into a really sophisticated, long-lasting executive pension model. Honestly, it's kind of a blueprint that still holds surprising relevance for us right now.
Yeah, it really does. But to truly get why this was such a big deal, you have to understand the brutal reality of their leadership world back then. Forget tidy corporate boardrooms. You need to picture a relentless, super high-stakes succession battle. Survival was definitely not guaranteed.
That sounds pretty scary. Can you paint a picture? Like, what was okay, picture this. The Han Empire at that point was navigating some seriously dangerous waters. Perilous, really. We're talking about a really powerful shareholder family, the Hui clan. So they failed to get their guy into power, right?
Yeah.
And their next move, they literally tried to physically eliminate the official CEO successor, who was Crown Prince Lu Shi.
Right. And why this context is so crucial for understanding retirement is this. In that kind of environment, power transitions weren't just about job titles. They were often literal life or death struggles. So when the choices are basically stay in power or get eliminated, maybe even killed, well, the whole idea of just, voluntarily resigning, it seemed completely unthinkable, crazy even. This was the absolute ultimate work till you drop culture. There was no concept of a graceful exit, certainly not retirement.
Makes our modern office politics look like, I don't know, a playground disagreement. Seriously. Were there specific examples, people who really lived that brutal work-till-you-drop reality?
Oh, absolutely. Just look at Kai Yi. He was the prime minister right before Wei Jing, the guy we'll talk more about. Kai Yi literally died in office, just worked until he died. And the official rules for executives, they were draconian, really tough. Like if you took sick leave for more than 3 months straight, you were automatically dismissed. No salary, no benefits, just gone, immediately terminated. So you can imagine, right? It created this huge pressure to just cling to your position no matter what. Your health, your age, didn't matter.
Oh, just gone.
Yeah.
Sound by one. In the Han Group, the ultimate exit plan wasn't retirement. It was literally working until you dropped.
Exactly.
Okay, so with that as the backdrop, this horrifying reality, you'd think retirement was just completely impossible. But then something genuinely revolutionary happened, didn't it?
It did, yeah. This is where Prime Minister Wei Xian steps onto the stage. Here's this elderly second-in-command figure, and he does something absolutely unprecedented. He actually submits a resignation letter to the emperor, Emperor Shirwan. And the way he phrased it, it was incredibly humble, but also so profound. He said he was begging for the return of his bones.
Begging for the return of his bones. Wow. Can you just imagine the sheer audacity, the risk of making that move? I mean, in a system where you work until you literally can't anymore, it must have felt like a massive gamble. But Emperor Xuan's response, that was the real shocker, right? He didn't just approve it, which would have been surprising enough. No, he orchestrated this huge, grand, veteran employee honorable retirement ceremony.
And the rewards were, well, they were astonishingly generous for the time. We're talking 100 caddies of gold, an ornate carriage drawn by 4 horses, with the driver included, and a luxury retirement villa. But it wasn't just the stuff, you know? This is a huge cultural signal, a really powerful political statement.
Right, so you're saying Emperor Xuan wasn't just being, like, magnanimous. He was making a strategic play. It wasn't just HR. It was almost like brilliant PR, a cultural statement that echoed for ages.
Precisely. Yeah, it's a great way to put it. It declared loud and clear to the entire management class, hey, look, a lifetime of service can actually end with dignity, with honor, and yeah, with prosperity. The historian Sima Guang, writing centuries later, he totally nailed its significance. He noted that, quote, the prime minister's retirement began with Xi'an. This was it, the birth of history's first golden parachute. Even if, you know, initially it was kind of an impromptu, one-off thing, no fixed age, no standard pension yet.
Sound big, too. Wei Xian's begging for his bones was less about humility and more about a high-stakes political poker game.
Yeah, you could definitely see it that way. And there was this other layer, too, some political genius involved. See, Emperor Yuan was actually quite keen for Wei Xian, this veteran from the previous regime, to step aside. Why? Well, it made room for his own trusted team to consolidate power. Pretty standard politics, really. And Wei Xian, who was clearly incredibly shrewd, he sensed this. He picked up on the CEO's unspoken intention, so he initiated the move himself, basically completing what amounted to a tacit win-win political deal.
Okay, that makes sense. So this first golden parachute was almost like an accidental innovation then, born out of this very specific political maneuvering. But if it started as just a one-off, what pushed the Han Dynasty to eventually create an entire system for retirement? Like what made it such a big, widespread problem that needed a formal solution?
Well, it really comes down to a fundamental economic shift that happened over time. Think about the early Han Dynasty. It operated more like what we might call a shareholder executive era. So executives back then often had their own fiefdoms, lands, essentially, and these lands generated their main income, like equity dividends. So if they resigned from their official management job, it didn't financially destroy them. They still had their independent wealth.
Ah, okay. But then things changed, right? With more centralization, they moved into more of a professional manager era.
Exactly. And suddenly, for these managers, their income depended entirely on their official salary package from the state. So resignation now meant an immediate total loss of income, everything. For these professional managers who didn't have their own private wealth or those old fiefdoms, leaving office literally meant financial ruin. Destitution, potentially.
Okay, I see. And that leads directly to the obvious outcome, right? Executives would just cling to their jobs, regardless of their age, their competence, because they had no safety net.
Precisely. And this created massive organizational rigidity, stagnation at the top. There's actually a famous poem by Bai Jui satirizing this very thing. He described these imperial courts filled with incredibly elderly executives, like in their 80s and 90s, you know, with teeth fallen and eyes dim, as he put it, just occupying high positions like Well, like walking corpses and actively blocking any kind of organizational renewal or metabolism.
Walking corpses in the executive suite. Wow, that's a pretty vivid image. I'm almost picturing some modern meetings now,
Hmm.
though maybe slightly less dramatic. But yeah, it sounds like a really serious, widespread problem, something that definitely demanded a systematic fix.
It absolutely did. And that fix finally arrived during a period of pretty radical corporate restructuring, you might say. It was under this controversial figure named Wang Mang. He was kind of the chief reform officer of his day, and he introduced history's first formal executive pension plan.
Wow,
Okay.
okay, a formal plan. So how did it work? What were the specifics?
Well, the core idea was this. All executives at or above a certain rank, and was a pretty high level, by Qin Shid, they could receive 1/3 of their active in-service salary for life. After retiring due to old age, it was genuinely groundbreaking, a real solution to this growing problem of leaders clinging on too long.
And what's really remarkable, isn't it, is that this reform, even though Wang Mang himself had a, let's say, complicated legacy, and he was eventually overthrown, the idea actually stuck. It outlived him.
It did. It was seen as valuable. So subsequent leaders didn't scrap it. They actually continuously improved it. And eventually it evolved into a pretty mature system. 70 became the generally accepted conventional retirement age. And the pensions were even increased, eventually reaching half of the in-service salary ban thing, they called it.
Soundbite 3. The Han Dynasty taught us.
Yeah.
If you want your leaders to leave, you better give them a financially soft landing.
That's the essence of it, yeah.
Okay, so we've traced this whole journey from these brutal power struggles and the work till you drop necessity to the sort of accidental birth of the golden parachute with Wei Xian, and finally to this institutionalized pension plan under Wang Mang and beyond. But let's bring back to today. What does all this ancient history mean for us right now as we navigate our own corporate worlds?
Right. Well, I think this deep dive offers some really critical modern insights. 3 main ones, maybe. First, you absolutely need to elevate executive honorable retirement. It can't just be treated as some routine HR function. It needs to be a strategic ceremony. So many companies today, they send really vague or maybe indifferent signals when veteran executives leave. And that, honestly, it undermines the long-term commitment of the whole team who are watching. Wei Xin's case shows that a really well-planned, transparent, respectful retirement ceremony, it yields a high ROI. It really does. It's not just a reward for that one person. It's a powerful cultural investment. It signals, hey, long-term commitment here actually brings rewards. And let's be frank, a generous golden parachute is still an incredibly effective political tool for CEOs. It helps accelerate power transitions, remove obstacles smoothly.
Okay, so it's not just about the money, the payout itself. It's the act of the ceremony, the public recognition that creates this wider cultural impact. Am I getting that right?
Yes, exactly. You've hit the nail right on the head there. The gold, the package, that's for the individual, but the ceremony, that's for everyone else watching. It sets a powerful benchmark for the whole culture. Second big insight. Your compensation structure fundamentally shapes the executive life cycle. You have to be aware of pure salary traps. The Han Group's shift, from those shareholder executives with land to the salaried professional managers, it highlights a core truth. If an executive's main income is solely tied to their active service pay, with no long-term value carrying over post-retirement like equity or deferred comp, they will cling to their seats. It's just rational self-interest.
Right. So for anyone listening who's on a board or on a compensation committee, the message is pretty clear. You really need a balanced compensation system. You've got to integrate the short-term incentives with genuine long-term security. Things like equity incentives, maybe profit sharing, definitely deferred retirement benefits. Because that helps decouple the executive's personal financial security from the company's immediate year-to-year performance, right? It encourages them to think longer term and maybe embrace the next stage of life when they've passed their peak contribution.
Exactly. And the final point, which might be the most crucial, think of pension plans or whatever you call your comprehensive retirement packages as powerful corporate governance tools. They're not just employee benefits. That's underselling their strategic value. Wang Mang's reform, remember, it wasn't just about respect for the elderly. That was part of it, sure, but strategically. It was about solving a potentially fatal organizational governance issue, that stagnant metabolism right at the very top leadership level.
That is a huge takeaway, especially for modern companies, maybe long-standing ones, founder-led ones. They face this exact challenge all the time. So an institutionalized, attractive pension or retirement plan to making sure the board and the C-suite can continuously bring in fresh blood, maintain that strategic vitality. It provides that dignified, financially secure pathway for leaders to actually step down at the right time.
couldn't have said it better myself. So yeah, to all the founder CEOs, HR leaders listening out there, instead of just passively reacting when a veteran executive, maybe someone you really value, can no longer quite perform at the level needed, you need to proactively design the financial systems and also the honor systems that incentivize timely, honorable retirement. It's really responsible top-level design. It's about securing the company's future.
So thinking about all this, it leaves me with a kind of provocative question. Considering those brutal power struggles back then, are our modern golden parachutes, are they really just about honoring service? Or are they still, maybe deep down at their core, just a less violent, more civilized way to clear the path to the next generation? If you found this discussion useful, maybe learned something new, definitely hit that subscribe button. We do these deep dives regularly, exploring valuable ideas.
We appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.